What is a hero? A mythological figure, often of divine descent, endowed with great strength or ability? An illustrious warrior? No. It's a person admired for achievements and noble qualities, one who shows great courage. Welcome to the What's a Hero podcast, where we dive deep into what a hero is and what makes them that hero. I'm your host, Ken Fraunfelter, and I'm going to be introducing you to some of the world's most likely and unlikely heroes. You may have never heard of them before, and they most likely have never met you. But they all have one thing in common. They are ready to do whatever it takes to help make you better, even if it means sacrificing everything for you. Let's get into it.
This is episode 54 of the What's a Hero podcast with me, Ken Fraunfelter. We've all been told at one time or another that when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And while you may not consider yourself quite as tough as any of the rugged, seemingly fearless characters John Wayne portrayed on the big screen, the truth is everyone is capable of rising to the occasion. All it takes is the right mentality. The question, "You want to quit, Ethan?" posed by Captain Reverend Samuel Clayton, played by Ward Bond in The Searchers, elicits the type of response you might expect from John Wayne, or from a John Wayne character. In the 1956 film, Duke's Ethan Edwards was a veteran of the American Civil War, devotes years of his life to the mission of rescuing his niece Debbie, played by Natalie Wood, from her Comanche captors, even though the endeavor seems more fruitless with each passing year. "That'll be the day," Edwards replies, scoffing at the idea of ever calling it quits. Eventually, Edwards' attitude leads him and his crew to Debbie, validating the veteran's steadfast will to continue the quest. It's a welcome reminder that even when the deck is stacked against you, success is still possible. Don't throw in the towel, grit your teeth, and get it done. And that is an excerpt, actually a chapter, an entire chapter from a book called Everything I Need to Know I Learned from John Wayne. And that kind of encompasses what it is in life that we need to be looking at, that we need to be considering on how it is that we tackle life's problems and things that come at us. That idea that I don't quit, I have to go do what I need to go do. And I'm not talking about, frivolous things. I'm not talking about little things. I'm talking about those things that need to get done, the things that we do in life that either help other people or help ourselves progress. And I don't mean progress as in make sure you fold your socks the right way or some stupid thing like that. I'm talking about real life things that will forever be the thing that will move people along in a better way, to help keep people alive, to help actually produce something as opposed to always consuming something. And that idea that I will continue to go until I cannot go any further, and then, even at that point where I can't go any further, decide that I'm going to keep going, even at that point, no matter what, is the quintessential way that we as police officers, first responders, veterans, we have to look at things. We have to look at things in life that way. And today's guest is somebody that does that exact thing. They look at a thing that they say, I need to keep going and I need to fight forward with it. Now, this person, they've not only kept that mindset, but they have lived that. As a matter of fact, they have died that. And what we're going to do is talk to them today about that life in which they chose not to quit and not to give up, but instead push forward and be there for somebody else to be able to do more and produce more. So with that, I'm honored to introduce you guys to a gentleman named Brandon Griffith, who is the president and CEO of Griffith Blue Heart nonprofit. And he's a police officer. And Brandon, how you doing today?
Man, wow, what an intro! Very well put, man. I'm a big John Wayne fan, and tying that into what first responders do every single day, digging in and not giving up, that default aggression is something I'm very passionate about. So I'm very well, man. Thank you for having me on the show today.
Absolutely. This is it's an honor to have you here. And, when you reached out and you're saying, hey, let's do this, check this out. I mean, it just hit me that what you do and what you've been through is something that people want to hear. People need to hear, whether they think they need to hear it or not. I think it's a thing that they should hear, just so they can get a perspective. But they can also see, maybe they can gauge their own life from that and say, you know what, I don't really have it that bad. Or, man, if that guy can do it, I can do it too. And that sort of thing. And so, I mean, it's just fantastic to hear you. And a lot of people are like, why are you talking so, this, that, the other? Trust me, the story gets good here. So we'll get into that. But who's Brandon? Who is Brandon?
Man, I'm just a public servant, man. I'm an Arizonan born and raised. I married my high school sweetheart. I got 2 incredible kids, 1 son, 1 daughter. And I try to earn every single day I'm given, man. I'm a lifelong martial artist, an avid mountain biker. And I just enjoy life, man.
Very cool. Very cool. So who was little Brandon? What did little Brandon do? Why does that little guy need to be honored by all the things that you do now? Who was he that made you into who you are now?
My younger years, I was a shithead, man. I was not who I am today, I'll tell you. But it definitely helped shape me. I was literally that diagnosed ADHD kid. I was every teacher's nightmare. I set the record for my school suspensions. I got the bomb squad called out to my school at one point. Like, I was an absolute nightmare, man. My parents were very smart to put me into martial arts at a young age to kind of hone in that energy and that drive. So being in martial arts, being around military and law enforcement helped shape that. And when I stepped out of line, whooped my ass when I needed it. So
that's good. That's good. I mean, what were you doing when as a kid? And I ask this question a lot. And the reason I ask it is because there is I'm finding a correlation between folks like us who go out and seek whatever it is we're seeking to try to serve other people and do stuff and nearly sacrifice our entire life for it. But that has to come from somewhere. Where did that come from? Who was that kid? What did he do?
It definitely came from the life in martial arts, growing up around military, growing up around law enforcement, guys that carried themselves in a different way, guys that they listened more than they spoke, and guys that knew exactly what to say when the time came because they had such life experience. And going on ride-alongs and going into the medical field at a young age, I started off as a lifeguard, and I started going into the EMT side of things. And I learned very young that I enjoyed helping people, especially in those life and death moments. I mean, the first time I did CPR, I was in high school. So, I tell people I wasn't even a man yet. And obviously, this is back in the day when CPR was a joke and you had almost no survival. Yeah, almost no saves.
Right.
So, obviously, the guy didn't make it. But while I'm doing compressions on the guy, here I am, 15, 16 years old. His wife and daughter walk up on me right while I'm doing this, and he didn't make it. I had to look both of them in the eye, and that was something that I didn't want to have that feeling ever again. So I knew that I wanted to push my boundaries. I knew I wanted to serve people, but I didn't want to just go into the EMS side of it. I've always been an adrenaline junkie. I've always been one of those guys that puts his own body in harm doing stupid things like mountain biking, rock climbing, boulder and rock jumping, just stupid things like that. So I knew I wanted to do something, especially with my martial art background. I wanted to use my skills set to actually help others.
Did you know that, in school, as you're growing up and as you're going through middle school and high school and stuff, did you know that this is what I want to do? Or were you kind of like, that's kind of a cool thing. Maybe I'm leaning towards this, but did you know, you said you were around military and law enforcement guys. Was that something that said, I don't have another choice. That's just where I'm being guided because I know that's what I am?
I was originally dedicated to martial arts, and I wanted to grow up to be an instructor. I wanted to have my own dojang. I wanted to instruct. I wanted to teach. But the older I got, the more I saw of that. I'm like, do I really want to be running classes and teaching kids and doing all that, or do I want to use this to actually help people and make a difference? And that's when I was in high school and I got with my high school sweetheart, I knew that I was at that time I wanted to join the military. I was looking at the Marine Corps, and then I knew I wanted to do law enforcement. I wanted to do something to help people after ride-alongs and hanging out with all these guys. I was like, this is the direction I want to go to. But having fallen in love with my high school sweetheart, as we continue that relationship, I was like, do I really want to go in the military? Being away from her while she's going to her schooling, she was going into the medical field. I'm like, the chances of us staying together if I do this are not very strong, looking at all the divorce rates and the guys that I came up with. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to focus on law enforcement. I'm going to skip the military step. And while I was doing that, I went into the private sector until I was old enough. And that's when she and I became EMTs together while she was applying for medical school and getting her undergrad. And it was a great experience, but it was through her that I realized that, you know what, I want to serve my community. I want to do something here where I can return home each night to my wife.
Right. So you're looking at this whole time in which you're just figuring out, this is what I want to do and this is where I want to go and this is how it is. And you're very comfortable with that decision that you made, I'm assuming, correct?
I was, and it was reignited the more I got into it. When I was doing private security and protection details and stuff, I was working in hospitality security and working with, rock stars and athletes and dignitaries and doing all this stuff. But working at these hotels, man, it was just like law enforcement in a lot of aspects. We had the dead bodies, the suicides, the fights. We had emergency calls where we were doing first aid, and I thrived in those situations. I found that I did very well under stress and pressure. Mm-hmm. When I got into those situations, I really enjoyed them. And as the responders were coming in and working with police officers while I was getting old enough and while I was studying in college, it just kept lighting it. And then the EMS side of it and having some situations that I went through with losing a buddy in college and then having my uncle have a cardiac arrest, I saw that I was leaning towards the medical side of it, but I didn't realize how often, everyone thinks police and the fire guys and the EMS guys take care of all the medical calls and the police guys take care of the bad guys on the criminal justice side.
Right.
I wasn't on the streets at that point. I didn't realize 90% of the time cops are on scene first. And we are the true first responders. We're the ones on scene, in that first 1 to 4 minutes waiting for fire and EMS to actually come and take over. So
right.
It continued on that path. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the thing that a lot of people, taking that separation and saying, I know that I can do medical stuff and that's what I like to do. I like doing that stuff and forgetting that a lot of times the police are going to be doing a lot of medical stuff. You got to have that stuff. And aside from your basic first aid and CPR, you're going to do a lot of stuff that you're going to have to understand that you need to do some basic education yourself. You have to learn what's gonna be a sucking chest wound. You're gonna have to learn what it's gonna be to, this he's obviously got something in his he's choking on his own blood or whatever the case is, depending on the worst case scenario. And a lot of times, fire is gonna stage for us to clear the scene before they get in there. And if our hands are busy working on something, we can't necessarily get on the radio and say, hey, we're fire's clear to come in or whatever. And so that's a big thing. And at what age were you when you realized this, I guess, epiphany?
I really realized it. I really realized how underprepared and underutilized law enforcement is when it comes to medical response after my incident. I mean, I was actively in the field. I got a ton of life saves. I was doing, from kids choking to water rescues to getting people out of burning buildings to slapping tourniquets on people we were getting a lot of that on the patrol side, being an FTO and doing the DT side of things.
Right.
I really enjoyed that, but it wasn't until I experienced my own cardiac arrest that I realized how unprepared law enforcement is. I started looking into it much further, looking at the state of the nation, almost like a market study, figuring out where law enforcement is today, how underutilized, how unprepared, and how unequipped law enforcement really is. And that wasn't until my own death, essentially, that I saw there was something that needed to be filled.
Right. And I guess, they talk about this whole thing that, cops do this, and I'm talking about like media and politics today and whatever. They talk about police are this and police are that. And I think, like you said, there's a misunderstanding or at least a a lack of understanding where they think that police just go out and they arrest bad guys and they take bad guys, or they go and get people and they're not always bad guys and the police are just doing whatever, they're making stuff up and all these different things, when in fact the police are going out there, they're doing these medical things. We do a lot more of that. We take more reports of just documenting things that happen to people, because sometimes there's just no evidence to show that there is as much as we'd like to catch the bad guy or go find your stolen items or whatever. Yes, we want to go do that. Do we always catch the bad guy? No, but there's another side of it where we don't realize that we're there first, and we have to know what we're doing. We have to know how to go about helping people out physically, and that medical side is absolutely underutilized. And to make sure you get a TCCC class or something like that would be important.
Yeah, and it's something that drives me crazy right now, looking at media in our society and putting cops in such a bad rap. When you look at the totality of it, we have 880,000 officers around this nation right now, almost 1 million cops, right? Mm-hmm. And they talk about systematic racism and overuse of force and all this stuff. But you look at the numbers, like we had 1,100 fatal police shootings last year. Less than 1% of those were found to be unjustified. Right. Now, we had 690,000 heart disease deaths. What are we more likely to come across? 90,000 overdoses. Uncontrolled bleeding is the number one cause of death in trauma. Not heart disease is the number one cause, but uncontrolled bleeding is the leading cause of death for trauma. And police officers are on scene first all the time. And you start looking at the system, and everyone's talking about reform, and everyone's talking about how there needs to be systematic change. And I'm like, you're talking about a fraction of a fraction. Yet I work in a lot of research. I work in a lot of the medical side of things. Mm-hmm. Medical error is the third leading cause of death in our country. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of Americans die per year because of a doctor's error. Right. We only had 1,100 fatal police shootings with less than 1% being found unjustified, but nobody's protesting in the streets against doctors. No one's asking physicians to wear body cameras. No one's going after them when they are the third leading cause of death. And I'm looking at it going, why are we under such a scrutinized microscope in the law enforcement side when we're out there risking our lives trying to make the difference, but nobody's going after the medical side? It's kind of a weird situation.
Yeah. It's that idea that I think, and this is my 2 cents, whether it's worth anything or whatever, I don't know, but it's that idea that we take somebody who has done something heinous, and we totally forget about, and this is the media, whatever. They totally forget about the victim, and now they're thinking about this guy that we focus on, who's on death row, or he's serving 50 years to life in prison, or whatever the case is. And they're like, oh, he's up for parole. His name continues to get brought up, and yet we forget about the victim that was raped or murdered or stolen from or beat up or whatever the case is. And I think that too often. And because victims, they don't want to go face. A lot of them don't want to go face their the person that assaulted them or whatever in court. They don't want to go do that. And then whenever there's news on something like that, the news wants to make sure that they magnify the person that did this sort of thing. So you talk about those guys that did the Columbine shooting. They always want to say, what were those guys' names? Don't even care. Don't care. What about the people that died? What about those kids that got hurt? Those are the people that we need to think about. Those are the people we need to be caring about. And too often, people are thinking about, these 2 kids, what caused them to do that? What happened to that? What about the girl that got shot? How about her mourning? How was her mourning? How has she been doing before that? And how is she doing now? Who is she? How are we building her up? How are we building him up to become, and the ones that are no longer with us? How are we honoring them? But instead, we focus on the person, the thing that did the most bad. And so then the police come along, and they're the ones who have taken them into custody, and they're the ones who did all the work to get them now in custody. And nobody brings up the lawyers and the judges and the court system where they got found guilty. It's just everything the police did here's all the evidence that we found. Here's the reasons that we think this person did this heinous thing. Here you go. And then victims get forgotten about. The courts get forgotten about. All it is the bad guy or the person that committed the crime, and the police who are now trying to victimize this poor person for they did something horrible. And that it's just this drama that the media wants to just drum up.
Well, like Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman says, listening and being a student of his for a long time, he talks about how much more traumatic and how much worse it is from human inflicted events. Like if there's a hurricane, if there's a twister, if there's a natural disaster, yeah, it's horrific and people's homes are destroyed and stuff, but it doesn't have the same psychological damage and trauma as an active shooter in the community attacking our kids or
Right.
a rapist. I mean, those traumatic scars that live with you, your mind will let your eyes forget what it's seen. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I definitely agree with that fact that people want to focus on the worst part of it, and they put too much attention on the negative side of things instead of those that are actually making a difference, those that have been affected by it, and those that have to live with that trauma.
Yeah. Yeah. He was just on 2 episodes ago, and he was talking about that, and where that idea that if you focus on the bad things that have happened to you, and that it's so much worse that if they come into your house, how much worse is that than if they're just on your front lawn, or they're out in the street in front of your house, or they're at the town square? How much worse is it when they actually get into your house and it's close to your home? And because we can listen to that all day long, the problems that happened overseas or in some other part of the country, but when it's close to home, that's when we really worry about it. And now we can put a face with it. We can go down that road like that.
Reasons why first responders have such high PTS and have got such mental health issues. I mean, when it comes to military, I mean, they're overseas. They get to come home and they get to take a little breath and decompress. But when with police officers, this is your community. You're out shopping at the grocery store and see a guy you picked up on a warrant before, and he's giving you the mad eye when you're walking down the aisle with your kids. Like, you don't always get a break when you're at home, when you're out in your community and you're driving past a spot where you had a horrific incident in your community. It's something that you can't just turn off. Yeah.
I was having lunch with my mother-in-law, my grandmother-in-law, and my wife, and I saw a guy that I knew was wanted for homicide, and he's walking around in the parking lot out in front of the restaurant. And so what do I do is I call it in, but I saw him get in a car and drive away, and he goes to a neighboring grocery store, and I'm like, he's right here, we got to make sure. So I keep eyes on him until units can get there, but they're like, where is he? And it's busy, it's a weekend, and there's just cars everywhere. And I'm like, he's right there. And so my question is, I've got my family with me. Do I need to worry about this, or does the murderer need to get caught? Well, both. I've got to consider that. So, however it is, that's where I'm at. I mean, this is my town and this is my community. This is where I'm at. But we can't have a murderer just running loose that is wanted in multiple states. It doesn't work that way. And so you have to do something. And so you get into the mindset where you're having to do something. And that's your life. That's your mission right now. And you were saying that you're an FTO. You're defensive tactics instructor, right?
Yes, sir.
What else were you doing? What else did you do?
Firearms instruction, crisis intervention. I helped start our agency's community action team, which became our criminal apprehension unit. I got to do some drug and addiction details. I made my SWAT team. I got heavily involved in the instruction side and I work with TAC Flow Academy with Rico Durazo. I help out with combatives, instructional alignment combat principles, and absolutely love every single moment of it, man. Being with the TAC Flow guys and learning from that caliber of operators and special forces guys just does nothing but make me better. I'm a sponge when I'm around the rest of these guys. I'm just soaking it all up.
Yeah. That's cool. That is super cool. Did and you said your wife she was EMT. Is she still EMT, or is she getting something else?
So my wife, we both let our EMT certifications lapse a long time ago, but she actually went into medical school and she became a cardiovascular perfusionist. So she's in the OR, and what she does is when the surgeon goes in to cut you open and start doing the surgery, they obviously can't operate on your heart while it's still beating. Mm-hmm. So what she does is they cannulate the blood out to her into the heart and lung bypass. And basically she stops your heart so the surgeon can do his thing. And while he's doing surgery on your heart, she's keeping you alive. She's oxygenating your brain. She's taking care of the temperature control for the body, like the hypothermia stuff, the gas oxygenation. She keeps you alive the entire time on bypass. And then as soon as the surgery is over, she restarts your heart. That's what she does.
She becomes your heart. She becomes the heart.
She does. Yeah. She takes over all all brain function, cardioplegia, all, you name it. This is what she does, and she is way too smart for me.
That's cool. And how long have you been doing that? How long have you been doing police work? When you decided I'm going in?
Technically, I started in 2008. I was with, I started out my police career with actually Phoenix Police Department, but they laid my entire academy class off like a week before we were supposed to start the academy. So I don't count that.
Oh, wow. Because
I was back to the drawing board. They kind of said, hey, we're going to put you in as reserve, and then as soon as we can start hiring again, this is right during the recession in 2008. Like, right. As soon as we open back up, you guys will be the first in line. And we get the nice phone call, hey, your application timed out. Best of luck. So we were back to the drawing board again. So that's when I ended up getting picked up with Buckeye Police Department and started my career over there. Mm-hmm. And I absolutely loved it, man. I've been in law enforcement ever since. But after the nonprofit was started and continued to grow and expand, I had to take a back seat. So I said, you know what? I can make a much bigger difference with this nonprofit implementing life-saving services than I can individually on the street. So I dropped to reserve. I'm still an active reserve police officer, but I don't consider myself a real cop anymore. I'm not doing 40 to 60 hours on the roads. Right. Half the time when I'm doing my hours, it's in a different capacity. So still certified, but I don't consider myself a real cop anymore.
So, and how long had you done that? How long were you active?
Full time. So I worked with Buckeye for until 2008, and then I dropped to reserve, and I've been working in reserve ever since. So we're talking 12 to 14 years total.
Okay. And so let's talk about the reason that you dropped down to not active necessarily. Let's talk about what happened. What was the day? Start from before.
So that was many years later, but if we're going to talk about the incident that kind of ignited this fire, when I was 26 years old, I had just made my SWAT team 2 weeks before this. I'm in great shape. I'm on top of the world. My wife had just been accepted to medical school. We were settling into our new house. We got a new puppy. Like, life is good, man. No stress, no issues. And my wife makes fun of me because, I've been shot at. I've been in knife fights. I got trapped under a vehicle in a water rescue, but I died at home reading a book. So I put the book down. I said, hey, I'm going to take the dog out. And I took 2 steps towards the door in my den, and it hit me like a freight train. Just, if you've ever had someone jump out and scare you, and your heart skips that beat and you get that palpitation, that big flutter in your chest. Uh-huh. Well, imagine that feeling, but nonstop. Now, I collapsed within about a second and a half, but I experienced time distortion. So even though I was in the process of collapsing, everything slowed way down. I knew instantly something is not right. And I'm trying to force myself to breathe, but I didn't realize that when you're in cardiac arrest or ventricular fibrillation, your lungs can't expand with oxygen. So I had this electrical misfire in my heart. And as I'm trying to force myself to do combat breathing, my wife turns around and sees my face as the darkest purple. She immediately recognizes that I'm going down. She pulls her phone out and starts to call 911.
Because she's a doc, or she's working in the medical field at this point. Obviously, she's had the whole history, but
we had the EMT certification at this point, but she had just finished her undergrad and she had just been accepted to medical school. She was starting that fall. Uh-huh. So this is still in the spring. So she hadn't even stepped foot into Midwestern Medical University yet. But so she immediately calls 911 as I collapse backwards into my bookshelf. She tries to catch me as I'm falling forward. Now I'm 6'4", man. My wife's about 5'3", so I topple right over her. I put my head right in the corner of my closet, right where the beam is.
Yeah.
So I land on my hands and my knees, and I'm looking out in my hallway, and I'm getting tunnel vision. But it's not like we normally get in the field. It's this dark purple, and it's fluttering. It's not like I'm looking through the coffee straw. It's flickering out on me. Okay. Now I know that was blood leaving my brain and my ocular cavities, my body. I was watching myself die.
Wow.
And in that moment, here I am. I'm an EMT. I'm a cop. I've done CPR. I don't know how many times. I don't know how many lives I've saved. But in this exact moment, that feeling of helplessness is something I can't describe to people, knowing that there's nothing you can do as you're watching yourself die, knowing this is it. And that's when I dropped my amazing wife. She rolled me on my back. She was on the phone with the dispatcher, coordinating everything. She started doing compressions and working on me. She did CPR on me for 4 to 4.5 minutes. And because she was smaller than me, she even had the wherewithal in the middle of that to put my legs up on the couch in our den because she wanted all the oxygenated blood in my legs to have gravity forcing it down on my core. I mean,
right.
now that I teach this at a higher level, I can't even get physicians and ER docs to do that. The fact that she did that in that moment, like, we all talk about what it's like responding to traumatic incidents as police officers, but it's very different when it's in your home and it's the love of your life. When it's your kid, when it's your spouse, like the fact that she is my absolute hero, man. The fact that she was able to not only start this and save my life, but the fact that she was able to act in the way that she did in those moments. Like, I don't know if I could have done the same on her. I would have done it, but not as well as she did. But she worked on me. She hears the knock at the door, pulls the dog out, opens the front door for the first responder, who was a fellow police officer. He was not equipped with an AED, but he came in and did a phenomenal job. He took over compressions for her. He jumped on my chest and gave it everything he had, man. He worked on me until fire and EMS got on scene, probably about the 9.5 minute mark.
Wow.
So the crew comes into my house, and now, mind you, I live half a mile from the fire department there, but that crew was on another call for service. So the next closest unit got diverted. They were on a car accident, so the next closest unit, which is why people think that, I live around the corner from the fire department. It's all good.
They got to work. They're busy.
They have advocate response. They can't leave a patient. They can't toss a diabetic a Snickers and say someone's worse than you.
And they're not waiting for you to have your problem. And like, we can't do anything. We're waiting for Brandon to,
precisely.
That's not going to happen. Yeah.
So they come in, they drag my body in my living room where they got some more room to work. They IO drill me. They start dropping on OPA. They worked on me. Several defibrillations, but all in all, I was resuscitated, but I was dead for 16.5 minutes before I was finally brought back. And, I woke up, started pushing the guys off me, sitting up, and I don't remember that part. My wife, grabbed me and she said, "Don't leave me." I said, "I won't," before I collapsed backwards on the gurney. And I do remember feeling the sway of the gurney, and I could hear the firefighters' footsteps in the rocks in my front yard as they were loading me up. But, according to the crew, I was in the back talking shit, calling them hose draggers, cracking jokes. I don't remember that part. The next 5 days, I was in and out of consciousness. My brain was resetting from hypoxia, and all that oxygen deprivation really affected me. So I remember like phrases, and I remember people. I remember waking up and there's my chief in the ICU, and I'm going back out. I talked to my wife what happened. She tells me again, I passed back out. And they're running every single test possible on me during this period, MRIs and echoes and EKGs, and there's nothing wrong with my heart. There's no diagnosis. They can't figure out why I had this cardiac arrest, why I had this electrical misfire. They've done everything possible. They've broken my blood down to chromosomic levels, and I got what's called an idiopathic diagnosis, which means the doctors were idiots that couldn't figure it out. So they placed this device in my chest, and they set me up with an electrophysiologist, and now I'm 26 years old facing forced medical retirement.
Yeah, that's exactly what you were hoping for, I'm guessing. As soon as, yeah.
So that was the start of my next journey, and that's what that fight back to work, because I was not going to let someone tell me what I could or couldn't do anymore. Here I was in great shape. There was nothing wrong with me. They couldn't find a diagnosis, so there's no reason why I shouldn't still be able to be a police officer. And
right.
So often, cardiac arrest survivors are written off. Everyone thinks, "Oh, you had a heart attack." I didn't have a heart attack. I had a cardiac arrest. And people don't know the difference between like heart failure and myocardial infarctions and cardiac arrest. They don't get that. So they think there's got to be something wrong with you. There's got to be a genetic defect. There's got to be a hole in his heart, a murmur. Something's wrong with them. It couldn't happen to me.
Right.
Like, number one cause of heart disease is the number one cause of death. And we lose 30,000 kids under 18 per year from cardiac incidents like this, like electrical misfires, cardiomyopathy, like all these things that are going on in our country. People have no idea that young athletic males are at the highest risk. All those stories you see, kids dropping at basketball and baseball practice and not getting revived, that's all cardiac arrest.
And so I'm gonna go ahead and, I guess, put out my dumbness here. What is the difference between each of those? What is the difference between, let's say, a heart attack, cardiac infarction?
So a heart attack is a blockage. Now, heart attacks don't just happen. You get a blockage in your arteries over time, and it's a plumbing issue. So if you're thinking plumbing, one of the arteries has got a blockage and a section of the heart is not getting adequate blood flow. Mm-hmm. Heart attacks are about 95% survivable, but heart attacks can lead to cardiac arrest where the heart's not getting enough oxygen and it goes and it shorts out.
Right.
Cardiac arrest is an electrical issue, right? Imagine you plug in that Christmas tree and it shorts out on you, blinks out. That's exactly what it is. From the time you're in the womb to the day you die, your heart sends these electrical impulses that cause the 4 chambers in your heart to beat in the right sequence. Mm-hmm. It takes one misfire for you to drop dead. And that's exactly what happened to me. It was a misfire. There's nothing structurally wrong with my heart. There was no electrical issues in my heart. They've done everything possible to try to figure that out. But there are other issues like, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, where the heart is enlarged and it causes issues and causes a lot of young athletes to drop. I mean, there's heart failure where the heart's not strong enough to keep adequate blood flow and starts shutting down. Heart disease is that umbrella term, and everything kind of goes underneath it.
I see. So going back to when you first had it, you said that whole like your whole vision was just kind of darkening on the edges and and you said the blood was. Are you feeling anything at this point? Are you in pain? Was it a thing that was just happening and just more confused as to what's going on than anything, or what?
At that point, when I was experiencing time distortion, everything was slowing down. My training kicked in, and I remember, Dave Grossman's combat breathing. I'm like trying to force myself to breathe, but in that moment, because my lungs can't expand with oxygen, I'm literally convulsing. Like my jugular veins are distended, and I got lockjaw, and I'm going like trying to force myself to breathe, almost having like a seizure type thing, and I can't. My wife was smacking me out of lockjaw, and my face was the darkest purple she'd ever seen. But in those moments where everything was fading out, man, I'll tell you, I was scared shitless. I mean, I'm sitting there going, "This is it. I guess this is how I go." And I'm looking out and figuring, there's nothing I can do, man. I've tried everything I can. I'm trying just to stay on my hands and my knees and not give in. That default aggression that don't give up.
Not fall to the ground and not just let your body collapse, huh?
Man, there was nothing I could do.
Yeah.
And I tried everything I could, but you can't stop your body from having this incident. You need defibrillation. Your heart needs to get shocked to go back to the right rhythm. It's not like TV where they flatline it. They make it look like the heart stops. Your heart's basically quivering in this motion, trying to go back to that normal rhythmia. It needs that shock to go back. So, I mean, in that moment, yeah, it was pain and it was fear. But when I died, I had an experience, and I work with near-death physicians that there's a lot of dispute in the community. Some people think that what people experience, they talk about seeing a light, or they talk about seeing family members, or they floated above the surgical table. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are like, are those hallucinations? Are those random neurons firing in the brain while you're going out? Or did they actually float above? Did they transcend? Did they go to another realm? What the hell happened?
Right.
And a lot of the physicians and people that I've talked to have told me that within that first 7 minutes of death, I guess it's still possible for your body to break down your endocrine system, like your neuroepinephrine and dimethyltrimine, cortisol, all the stress hormones that our body creates. And you have these neurons that fire in your brain. So I'm not a physician by any means. I've just talked to a lot of people, so I can't take credit for any of this. But the way that they explained it to me was that usually the people that tell them that their life flashed before their eyes, that they floated above the table, that they saw the white light, those people were usually resuscitated in the first 7 minutes. Now, myself being dead for 16 and a half, I didn't have the floating or standing over my body watching it. I definitely felt a rising sensation, and I went somewhere else that I don't go into publicly, and I had a conversation on the other side where I was told to earn it. And I was my theory is the longer you're over there, the more you see. And I've talked to survivors internationally who've been dead past that 7 minute mark from different things, and they all experienced that black, that calmness, that surrealness, that there was no fear, there was no anxiety, there was no pain. It was the happiest, most blissful feeling I ever felt. And some people call it like a dreamlike state, but I was actively conscious, and I remember going, where the hell am I? What is going on? And I remember having a conversation, but it's not like you and I are having right now. This presence that was with me, I don't know who would be. We were speaking more with intuition and feeling, or like ESP, I don't know what you want to call it, than with words. But I had a conversation on the other side, and the longer I'm over there, the more I'm starting to see. But coming back, when they actually shocked me back, it was like someone flipped the light switch, man. And I remember every moment of that, very detailed, graphic. I remember all of a sudden it was no longer happy. It was no longer blissful. I am in pain. I could see like these white and like dark red flashes going on in my head. Man, my chest hurt. They've been compressing on me for 16 and a half minutes. You know, my cop buddies have all been tased. I had that metallic penny taste afterwards, where you can taste that from being defibrillated several times. My arms and my legs hadn't been oxygenated properly for that whole period, so it feels like daggers, like someone's stabbing them. But they drilled through my leg. I could feel something in my bone. I could feel, my lip had been busted open from the OPA when they dropped it in, so I'm bleeding. I could taste all the blood, but I could definitely. The worst part of it, though, was my head, man. With every single heartbeat, with that blood going back to my brain on its own, it felt like someone was taking a sledgehammer to the top of my skull.
Just it was pump into there. Huh? Just
every single heartbeat, man. It felt like someone was caving my head in. And I remember that feeling, like that migraine and that I was no longer in. So I know that I died. I went somewhere else. And what's always comforted me is that you're still you when you die. Wherever we go after that, my theory is that the longer you are over there, the more you see, like your eyes going into a dark room and you're waiting for your cone vision to develop and you start seeing silhouettes and shapes of things. That's what I was experiencing. And I've talked to other survivors that were there longer and had a much more vivid experience than I do. So I'm definitely, I believe in God. I do believe that there is something after this life. And I don't speak too much about what I experienced in that time because I don't want to mess with other people's religious beliefs or anything like that.
Sure.
But it's definitely something that being told to earn my second chance has become my driving factor, man. I strive to earn each day I'm given. So I literally said, because you never know when your time is up, man. Like I said, I died reading a book. You never know when you're going to have that brain aneurysm, get struck by lightning or hit by a bus. So at the end of each day, I'm like, did I earn today? Was I a good father? Did I make a difference? Did I help somebody? Did I do a kind of thing? Did I hold the door for somebody? Did I help, did I talk to a friend? Or did I earn today? And if I go out right now, does my family know that I love them? Did I settle all these different debts and accords that I needed to before I go? So that's kind of the way I approach life now, because I don't know if it's going to happen again. I have this device in my chest if it does. I don't think it's going to happen again. It's been over 8 years since my incident with no issues whatsoever, but you never know, man.
And you don't know something else might be the cause of the whole thing happened in there. I think you're absolutely right. I don't think that we look at life enough to where we say, earn what you've got. We have this one life to live. Go do it. And we spend our life doing all these things, going to the beach and playing with our kids and doing these things. But then we're like, oh, gosh, guys, leave me alone. I don't want to play right now. Or you get whatever grumpy and you're not realizing that right now is when you have that. You have your kids right now, or you have your spouse right now, or you have whatever you're doing, you have this right now. And there's people that will waste your time, and there are people that and you'll just devote time to just maybe being on your social media or something like that. And we forget that we have to earn everything that we have right now. And and I don't mean earn the thing that you have right now, but do the thing to the best of your ability to serve other people, to give that to somebody else, so that you have done everything you can because of all the other things everybody else has given you. Everybody's sacrificed for you, and everybody's given to your family, your parents, your spouses. And then those people who have, the soldiers and Marines and veterans who've fought for your freedom, the police officers who are out there every day doing this thing, making sure you can live in a good society. We forget that. We think, hey, we've got to, I'm just going to be watching TV here, and I'm just going to sit on social media, and I'm just going to make stupid duck faces on TikTok or whatever. And we forget that you should go out and do something with your life. You should earn this. You've got one life to live. This world is huge, and there's so much you can be doing and not sitting on your couch. Go earn what you got. And I think a lot of people forget that. Shoot, I forget it from time to time, but you have to be reminded of it. And something like what you're telling us, this is huge. It's an absolute fantastic lesson to learn.
It's something that has been a real driving factor, man. And when I had my cardiac arrest, I hadn't had kids yet. Becoming a father, and it opened up a whole other doorways too. Not knowing not knowing what caused my incident, it was like, well, did I unknowingly pass something in my heart onto my kids? Am I going to have to rely on a complete stranger to save them one day? They're going to be by themselves. Like, so it's something that I'm truly fearful of, is that I may pass something on to them. So I try to prepare everybody around them, but I try to earn every single moment with them. It doesn't have to be grandiose and going out and doing political aspects, or, not everyone has to go out there and teach how to save lives, but I mean, just being a good father, being a good husband, letting them know, spending time, passing on what you've learned, trying a new skill set. Like, small things lead to much larger things. So being able to not take life for granted, because you're not guaranteed tomorrow. You're not guaranteed today. You never know what's gonna, if you're gonna have that brain aneurysm. You don't know if you're gonna get ambushed. You don't know if you're gonna, if you're gonna have a carbon monoxide issue in your home tonight. Like, earn your chance and appreciate the time that you have with your loved ones, because there's so many people that, 1,000 Americans today are going to die from cardiac arrest. 1,000 of them are going to drop dead and not get that second chance. They're not going to be able to hug their kids or tuck them in at night. They're not going to be able to have dinner with their spouses. They're not going to be able to go back to the work they're doing. So I realize how fortunate I am. I have 690,000 Americans dying per year, and 17 million people around the globe from heart disease. I'm one of the lucky ones. So I choose to take my second chance to try to save as many lives as possible and implement resuscitation programs, police departments, and try to make the biggest impact I can. So someday when I meet my maker, I can tell him that I did everything I can with the second chance he blessed me with.
Right. So you go through that whole thing, and you said you were in and out, and you would remember things, and you would go out again, and you'd wake up, you'd make smart ass comments or whatever, and then you'd go out again. What was that like? Do you remember each of those waking times, or was it all blur? Do you remember anything while you were out of it?
So I remember sections, man. I remember conversations. I remember intimate moments, but I also don't remember a lot. So most people around me told me about entire conversations. One of my buddies told me that he came to visit me in the hospital, and we had a few minutes, and I was bawling. Don't remember any part of that. So I don't remember a lot of that, but I do remember particularly the first image I remember waking up in the hospital to my wife leaning over me, kissing me on the forehead with tears in her eyes. And I'm asking her probably for the 17th time, what am I doing here? And she's telling me, you had a cardiac arrest, you're okay. And just seeing that smile on her face, that I could tell that she was telling me it again. I was starting to catch on that I had already been told this before. And I remember that image and just seeing her beautiful face over me, and that feeling, man, like that comfort, and then back out, and then waking back up, and I got half my squad, and I got a bunch of guys in there. And I remember one of the guys was wearing a Kraft shirt, which was the company I was working for at the time. And I saw that, and I had that vividly burned in my brain, the Punisher symbol right in front of me, and then going back out. So it was weird, man, because my brain had been damaged from oxygen deprivation. So it was in and out. And then after they put the defibrillator in my chest, they don't tell you, they keep you doped up, because you can't lift more than 10 pounds while your heart tissue's healing over this lead, and they put the stuff inside of you. So my wife was keeping me doped up, and people were bringing you all kinds of food when you're at home recovering. So it's like, man, was I gaining weight. Here I was going from working out, 3 to 5 times per week and getting ready for my SWAT team, to being a slug on the couch on lorazepam, watching TV and eating food that people were bringing me. So right. I gained a lot of weight. I had to go back to, not only was I fighting to go back to my job, but I had to get back down to fighting weight again. I had to go back to dieting and eating right, but I was pushing my body. I didn't know what I couldn't do. And that's so many cardiac arrest survivors, man. You're slapped on the back and they're like, hey, you're one of the lucky ones. Congratulations. Go out there and live your life. But there's no playbook. So one of the most terrifying things when you walk out of the hospital for the first time is this going to happen again? What's wrong with my heart? Was it something that I did? And they don't tell you the side effects from the medication, the mental health roller coaster you go through. I mean, for me, I went through almost like stages of grief. I went through anger and denial, and then I went through acceptance and all kinds of this big roller coaster of emotions while I was trying to fight for my job, and then trying to do my own cardiac rehab and figure out what my limitations are, literally working out so hard I'm pushing myself to pass out. My wife's afraid to leave me home alone. She's got, squad mates, and my SWAT team leader was in my house babysitting me because she didn't want to go to work. She was afraid to leave me alone in case it happened again. So I'm like, I'm feeling like a kid at this point. I'm like, why are you sending babysitters?
I'm okay.
For her comfort.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm fine, but I'm like, this thing on my chest is supposed to shock me if I die anyway. So like, what's the big deal? But it was her comfort blanket, having somebody else there for a while. And thank God for the guys. I mean, that brotherhood, the department donated time. So I wasn't on like, short-term or long-term disability. Everybody donated hours. So the entire time I was out for that 6 months, I was paid in full while I was fighting to go back to work. And that's something I can never repay. I'm so grateful for my team and those that looked out for me. And my chief had my back, and we were fighting risk management and going back. And I had to prove, I'm like, look, man, I'm safer than any other officer out there. Every single cop out there, every first responder is at a higher risk for cardiovascular disease. They're ticking time bombs. Not only do I get regular checkups with a cardiologist, I'm on medication to prevent any issues, and I got a device in my chest that shocks me instantly if it happens.
I'm the walking Tony Stark. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. If they collapse, they need CPR and an AED, and they still only have 7 or 9% chance of survival. So, I mean, I've already beaten the odds, so I had to prove that I'm not some fragile China doll, and it was a fight, man. It was, well, what happens if you get tased? What happens if this? What happens if we don't know about this? Being the case study is not an easy thing, because not only is all your shit exposed to everybody and they want to treat you like a China doll, so you had to outfight, outbench, outprove everybody so you could get back with your guys and know that you're not going to collapse. But you also had to be the first to document this, and everything you do is under the microscope. If you get sick, is it his heart? Is it this? And they want to look at you and treat you differently.
Right. I got a cold, man. Yeah, leave me alone. Yeah.
But all those, it drove me nuts because of this device and all the stigmas around it, man. They wanted to be like, well, he's got this thing in his heart. There's something wrong with him. But you let the guy with the triple bypass go back to the field. He's okay. Guys with insulin pumps are fine. But you're going to give me shit because I got a defibrillator? There's nothing wrong with me. And I've taken every PT test, every medical examination. Like, it was just a lot of stigmas you had to combat. And I have a lot of first responders that they immediately get written off. I mean, even in the professional world, look at that soccer player from Denmark that collapsed in the middle of that big game last year. Everyone's like, oh, he's never going to return to the field, and blah 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 blah. They wrote him off instantly, and now he's back scoring goals. Like,
right. You never know. I mean, you can't say, and you're right. Those people who have had whatever issue, they're getting those regular checkups, and they're making sure they have the best people in the world checking into them. And then we don't have an issue with all these other people who are out going doing whatever on the weekends, or they have high cholesterol, or they're morbidly obese or whatever. We're not going to say anything about that, but we're going to talk about the guy who he had an issue, and now he's got more contingencies than anybody else. And it's
a lot of the stigmas, man, the mental health side of it. When a cop asks for help, and they're stigmatized, and it's like, oh, there's something wrong with him. He's fragile now. But when they do the right thing and actually put in the work and go back, you can't fault them for getting help or needing to get something done.
Right. And I've talked to a lot of people that in that regard, and it's that same idea that just because you got hurt and now you're fixed doesn't mean that that thing's going to break. The fix isn't going to break. It's been fixed. It's not JB weld. They welded it solid on there, and it's not going to break again, and it's fixed, and it's back to go ahead and treat it like it's brand new. And not that you're 19 again, but you got a solid heart that can do everything you need it to do, right?
Absolutely, man. And I've done all the PT tests. I've done everything else. I keep myself in good shape. I make sure that I'm functional. I make sure that I can still do all my combatives and DT stuff. Like, I'm in a much better position than most officers that are actually out there right now. You know what I mean? We all know those guys that are obese. We all know those guys that don't get sleep, that are chain smoking, that are dipping all shift, that have got hypertension, that have got, all those guys that are walking ticking time bombs. We all know them.
Yeah, they go home and they have a bottle of whiskey or 3 beers. They work graveyard and have a beer or two before they go into bed in the morning. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of issues, and that people deal with their issues differently, and they deal with the stresses or the struggles or whatever they're having. You need to just get it out. You need to be talking about it and just talk about it. And then, but like on your side of it is you're actively doing something about it. You're actively doing something about yourself. And then you're taking all of that stuff and you're sharing with others, whether it's in your martial arts or doing whatever tactical training that you're doing or something else. Correct?
Yeah, and it wasn't until I got back to full active duty that I really, like we were discussing before, that I realized how much of a need there really was. Once I got back to the field, I'm sitting there going, I was enlightened to it. I was like, we're on scene first. We're already doing compressions. We're slapping tourniquets. We're using Narcan. Like, we're on scene first all the time, but only about 10 to 15% of agencies around the country have AEDs in all their patrol cars. Mm. And even then, most of the time, there's not a system of care in place. There's a lot of very well-intentioned organizations that outfit police departments with AEDs, but there's no structure. There's no support for the shit. It's like, oh, here's a Band-Aid. Put it in the back of your car and use it if you need it. But there's nothing in place to support that. There's not a chain of command. There's not a they didn't budget for it to replace pads and batteries. They didn't have medical direction over the program, or they didn't think about all that encompasses all the variables of the program. They didn't think about their dispatch protocols, their policies, all the rest of that. So I saw a real need for this, and I'm like, you know what? We need to do better. We're already on scene first, and there's going to be so many times where an officer is down from a cardiac incident or from a gunshot or stabbing or whatever it may be, where fire and EMS aren't getting in that scene. We need to be equipped. We need to be trained. We need to be prepared. So what started as a kind of a side thing, I told my wife, once I started getting involved in the cardiac side and kind of sharing my story a little bit, I saw this real need. And I said, I want to start kind of doing a training company. I started as an LLC on a side type thing where I was talking to other agencies about the need to implement AED programs. Mm-hmm. And then when they wanted to implement it, I was like, well, I didn't know if I'd get this far. So it was kind of like, what do we do now? So I had to bring in chiefs of police, policy writers, medical directors, researchers, dispatch experts, and create programs that no one had ever done before. So we had to literally create the playbook for police resuscitation. And we had a lot of trials, a lot of errors, and it's a constantly evolving thing, and it's continued to grow. We started implementing programs. We started helping agencies get funding. Hey, we're going to help you write this grant. We're going to help you guys use drug monies, or I'll present to your city council based on your numbers and convince them to budget this next fiscal year, or whatever it may be. We get the funding for it, and then we actually figure out, all right, not all AEDs are the same, man. Some of them are extremely expensive to operate. Some of them are cheaper. Some have one piece, some have two piece, some have these bells, some have these whistles, but they're not all right for law enforcement. And the cardiac industry has done such a piss poor job with law enforcement. They don't speak cop. They don't know how to work with officers. They don't know the variables that we're facing. And they treat us like the civilian population that's protected by the Good Samaritan law. They treat us like the mom and pop style. It's not some business.
Yes,
we're going to put it on the wall and it might get used.
It's not
These guys
HR
are responding to calls for help.
Right. It's not HR with Debbie down in accounting or whatever. It's a cop who's seen a lot of crap, and he will see a lot more, and it might be very, very bad.
But I mean, the industry doesn't even factor in the cost to maintain these for tax dollars. Like they want recurring revenue. So that's why they'll take a regular battery, put it in a plastic casing, and have sole proprietorship and charge, $200 to $400 for that thing. And all has to be replaced every 2 to 4 years. And here's the pads that are 160 something bucks or $200 that you have to replace all the time. But I'm like, look, this isn't at PayPal. This isn't on the office in case someone goes down while on duty. 4 out of 5 incidents happen at home where officers are constantly patrolling. Mm-hmm. They are going to get used. I mean, a lot of these agencies, even the smaller ones, one of them I work with had over 217. It's a 50-man department. They had 217 cardiac arrests in the jurisdiction last year. Think about how often, if they're actually responding and putting pads on it, that small agency has to replace 217 pads per year. That's going to add up. But none of these guys are putting together packages to do it. So we started getting more and more funds and started going more towards the nonprofit route. But one of the biggest areas of need that we saw was police training. Let me ask you, how often do you train in resuscitation?
We do it quarterly, maybe.
Quarterly? And let me guess, is that a PowerPoint and here's a clicker mannequin?
There is
compressions for a few minutes and you're good?
Yeah. So with box checking, yes, we do that. However, we also will go over TCCC, and we'll go over that at least once a month. We talk about it, or we to be honest with you, we get a lot of on the job training. We have a lot of I guess heroin's huge, opium's huge, and fentanyl's huge. And we'll have I'd say at least once a week we'll have an OD of one kind or another. And we're doing that. We're either slapping pads on, or we are getting Narcan out. And actually we have Narcan attached to our AEDs. We have a pouch that's attached to them. And then they got this new cool machine called the Lucas device. Mm-hmm. And what's kind of cool is we have a guy named Lucas. And so when somebody started talking about this, I was like, they're like, oh, you see that Lucas machine? I was like, he's pretty solid when he does his compressions, but we calling him a machine now? They're like, no, there's a machine. It's called the Lucas machine. What? And this thing, you strap it onto somebody and it does compressions for them. But whatever the case is, we do the box checking. We do TCCC. We do combat medicine and everything else like that. Because SWAT, they'll bring everything to us. And when I was on SWAT, we did all of that as well. But now we're actually using it almost on the weekly. And I've, personally, every weekend I've worked in the last month, I've had to do CPR on somebody.
Oh, absolutely. I don't know many cops that have been on for longer than 3 or 4 years that have lost count of how many times they've had to do CPR or tourniquet applications or Narcan.
Right.
You're going to do it constantly, but you guys are far, far ahead of most agencies. So most agencies that I work with across the nation, they're lucky if in 1 to 5 years they get a refresher. And it's like, hey, here's a PowerPoint. Here, check the box. You guys have done compressions for all of 30 seconds, but none of them are pressure testing it. None of them are doing the TCCC side of it. They're not doing it with actors and feedback mannequins. And that's one of the things that my director of training and I sat forth to do. We said, you know what? Everyone's doing these box checkers. No one's actually testing their skills under pressure. And most officers aren't tested until they're in the field and there's actually a life on the line.
Right.
We don't want them to figure out their deficiencies while they're working on that 2-year-old that's choking or pulling that kid out of the pool. We don't want them to figure out how well they are when the hypovolemia induces a cardiac arrest. So what we did is we created the Advanced Law Enforcement Resuscitation Academy, where it's a full-day course where officers go through the didactic phases and the skills-building phases on feedback mannequins, but the whole last half of the day is reality-based training scenarios. Mm-hmm. And that's where we got, suicide attempts and bleeding simulators where they actually have to put tourniquets over the lines to stop bleeds. They're wound packing. They've got overdoses. They've got cardiac arrest. They've got officer down, TCCC, or we're working in tactics. But this is not just for SWAT guys. This is for your patrol guys that are going to be on first 90% of the time. This is to build their skill level up, to give them the repetitions and the muscle memory to perform at a high level. And with the preliminary research we've done, cops are very good at procedural commands. Like when it comes to fine motor skills like firearms, when it comes to those perishable skills, cops are very good at keeping up on those. It's the same thing for compressions. Once they put their mind to it, we're finding police officers have better rates of cardiocerebral resuscitation than ER docs and nurses and people like that do it for a living. It's incredible when you start seeing those results. And I am looking to further this study and do some publications on it, but police continue to be the most underutilized component. And I'm glad that you guys have AEDs and most agencies don't, especially not in every patrol vehicle. They may have it in like a sergeant's car where it's never going to get used. Right, they may have a checkout program and guys forget about it until shit hits the fan. So it's something that we really strive to do is implement entire programs, because you got other agencies that don't even get dispatched to it, or it goes to fire first, and then 3 or 4 minutes later, they might tell PD, oh, by the way, fire's en route to this. If you guys can swing that way, start rolling, instead of being co-dispatch where they can make the biggest impact. I mean, if you can get the AED pads on someone in the first 1 to 4.5 minutes, you have the highest chances of survival. But if you do most public records requests for fire and EMS, they're not on scene until that 7 to 13 minute mark. If they're in rural areas, it's even worse.
Yeah. What's your theory on why it is that police officers have that ability to be able to make those decisions quicker than, you said, like doctors and whatnot?
Well, for one, when you talk to the doctors, and when I was teaching at universities and working with physicians from around the world, man, by the time the patient gets to them, it is a very low stress environment for the real. I mean, they're coming in prepackaged. They're coming in with EMS crews already working on it. They've already been to the nurses. They can put them on bypass or ECMO. They have a full team of people working with them, and it's just call the shots and do the next phase. Mm-hmm. In the field, it's very different. When you're the first one on the scene and that mom is screaming, "Save my baby," and hands you their blue 2-year-old, right, it's very different. Or when the guy just tried to kill you and you had to shoot him, and then you have to save his life and put on a chest seal for that sucking chest wound. It's a very different environment. Cops are very used to working in high stress environments. We're used to working with cortisol and adrenaline dumps. We're used to working and multitasking. But the other thing is most cops have that type A personality. Most cops are very competitive. So when we take them into that training environment and we put them on the feedback mannequins and we're actually showing them their output. Here's your depth. Here's your recoil. Here's your fractionality limitations. Here's what you're looking at. Once they understand the science of it, just like grip, stance, breathing, follow through, trigger control, everything else that we do, when you break it down into sequence, cops, it clicks. I understand. Just like when it comes to punching out my carbine, when it comes to clearing a class 1 malfunction, I can do the same thing when it comes to cardiovascular resuscitation. This is what I need to do, and this is how I get my rhythm, and it stays with them. And we're finding that when we go back 6 to 12 months later with these cops that have been through our course, they're still in the upper 90s for their cardiovascular resuscitation scores. It's incredible because, I mean, you got most people, it's a perishable skill, but they put in the time and they put in the effort, and they're doing CPR, unlike most of the population, because we're doing it so often. Right. They understand the stakes.
Right. And, that's just, you can't put a price on that. And I remember personally several instances where it came down to, I remember when my stepdad, he was sick. He was dying of cancer, and he had fallen, and my mom was just beside herself. She couldn't do anything. It was, you had to jump in there and do something. You had to, because we're in there, we're having dinner or whatever, and he'd fallen. So we have to change our thought process right away. We've got to change not only a positive and a jovial moment to now a life-threatening moment, whatever the case is, and you have to be able to just switch on and off. And a lot of people, it takes them time. They have to get in the mood or whatever. And cops don't do that. We're used to going to the next thing, whatever it may be, and that totally makes sense to me. So that's cool that you're doing more research on that, and I'd be interested in reading that when you get that.
We're trying to. I'm a columnist now for Police One, so I write several articles on hemorrhage control and cardiovascular resuscitation, dispatch protocols, and stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm working on some new ones about why police officers are at a higher risk for cardiovascular disease. That's my next article that I'm working on right now, and it's something that I'm pretty passionate about because a lot of cops don't realize how at risk we are, and that everyone thinks that cops think that suicide or gunfire or vehicle accidents are our number one cause of death. That's bullshit. It's heart disease. More cops die from heart disease than anything else. So you start looking at
our sleep? Is that our nutrition? Is that all those things put together? Stress?
Yes, it's the full package. So you start looking at it in its totality. One, yes, our endocrine systems are in overdrive. Every single shift. The average citizen experiences 3 to 8 critical stress incidents in their entire life. That's the shift or a week for us. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So every single hot call, every single subject with a knife, every unknown trouble, every partner asking for backup, you're getting jolts of adrenaline, dopamine, cortisol. You're getting dumps. So your glands are fatigued. The way that those get reset and the way that you healthily work through those is proper sleep, proper diet, proper exercise, proper downtime, which no cop has.
Right.
We're all constantly sleep deprived. So like Lieutenant Colonel Grossman says, sleep is the number one thing that you can do to keep yourself healthy. How many cops are getting really good sleep? You get off of a swing shift or a graveyard shift. I got court the next day. I have to show up. I've been subpoenaed. Yeah. You can't just, if I don't show up, the bad guy walks. So, but by the way, my kids have to go to school. I have to go take care of this. So guys are sacrificing their sleep constantly. And in order to compensate that, we over caffeinate. We all know those guys that go into shift with their bangs and their monsters and rock stars and crack one after the next open. So we're over caffeinated. We can't get good REM sleep at the end of our shifts. Alcohol is a sleep inhibitor as well. Most of our guys drink too much. They smoke too much. We're not getting good time to work out. We might be able to squeeze in a weight workout here and there. You got a few guys that are dedicated to running, but how many officers do you know are making physical fitness their regular routine every single day? I'm glad you are.
About five maybe.
Yeah. Maybe that. So, but are they combining that with healthy diets as well? No, we're eating shit from the gas station. We're going to a fast food restaurant because I packed a healthy lunch, but I forgot it going out the door. Or
I don't have time to go back and warm it up in the microwave, or I don't have time to try to eat it while I'm driving, or whatever the case is.
Or somebody bought us pizza at briefing or training, and I'm wolfing down a donut, or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
We're not having good diets, but the stresses and the traumas of the job as well. We are constantly exposed to horrific things that affect our body. It affects the way we perceive things, and we don't de-escalate when we're off duty. We're not taking that time. Everywhere we're going to the grocery store, the gas station, our head is on a swivel. We're looking around. We're always in that code yellow. We're always in that code orange. We're not getting time to relax, and we're not taking that deep breath. We're not meditating. We're not taking a better approach to it. So there's a ton of that are contributing factors to it. Also, we operate in extreme environments, extreme cold, extreme heat, and we go from sitting in a nice warm car from a very stagnant environment to we're in a full sprint and a fight for our life. So you go from the absolute extreme. So your body doesn't know how to compensate for that. So you're going tachycardic and you're going bradycardic constantly throughout your shift, and it affects your heart long term. Right. So I'm going to go into much more detail on that. But how often are agencies actually taking that part seriously? I mean, has your agency ever offered you a cardiac workup or a check, or have one of those mobile vehicles come out and do EKGs and echoes if you wanted it?
Nope.
It's not happening. Do you get yearly checks for your heart like you do for your regular physical?
Nope.
No, and this is shit. Like, heart attacks don't just happen. It's a blockage that builds up over time. You know how many cops would be saved if they just once a year, every couple of years, went and got a cardiac MRI or got an echo or got an EKG or did work with a cardiologist, but they don't think about that kind of stuff. And also, when is the last time you see agencies actually prioritizing sleep? They may have a policy in place, but it's never enforced. Guys are doing off-duty jobs and coming into work and doing this. They're not prioritizing it, but those that are working that have on-shift fatigue, are they making beds available for guys to sleep in, like the fire guys? Are you able to go in on shift and say, look, Sarge, I'm beat. Let me lay down for a half hour. Hell no, it's not happening. But having a cot or a little bed in the back room for your guys who are fatigued, or, hey man, I got off this morning at 6, but I got court at 8. There's no point in me driving all the way home.
Yeah, I live a half hour away, so I'm looking at an hour drive, and I'm going to miss another bit of sleep.
Yeah, have a bed in the back for you guys to crash. Hey, instead of buying donuts and pizza at every training, how about having some healthy options for your guys? How about encouraging that, or nutritionists coming in and working with your team? Or how about, hey, actually having workout time on duty? A lot of guys will say, oh, you're permitted a half hour for this or whatever, but how many of them are actually saying, hey, you need to prioritize your health. We're going to pay you to work out for half hour to an hour per shift. I know so many guys that would take advantage of that if they had the opportunity to get paid to work out on shift.
Right.
Instead of doing 10 hours in the road, they're doing 9 hours. But
if your department has an area to work out at, because some just don't. And
some don't. Some go to the fire departments that do have it. Some go to the community centers. But we need to start prioritizing our officers' health, because it is a hell of a lot more expensive, and you are a hell of a lot more liable for your officers when you don't take care of them. And it's a lot more expensive to pay out an officer's widow's benefits than it is to just pay for a cardiac screening or to implement a plan like this. And there are some progressive police departments that are prioritizing their officers' health, but officers as well, we're not making sure we're getting good sleep. We're not making sure we're getting our vitamins. A lot of guys aren't working out healthily. They're not taking that decompression time, and it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to tell Sarge, man, I'm beat. Something's not right. I feel off tonight, man. Can we get someone to cover this? But with short staffings and stuff nowadays, it's almost impossible, especially after the pandemic. Guys are overworked. We can't get staffed enough. People don't want to be cops anymore. So it's going to continue to get worse until we start making some much needed changes, which is why I'm doing this article right now, to start highlighting not only why it happens, red flags you can look for, and what officers and agencies can do to mitigate that risk.
And that's super cool, because too often we don't even consider that we need to be doing that. We need to be working out, or I'm tired. I'm going to go home and I'm going to go sit. I'm going to crack a beer and watch TV. That's not rest. That's, if you've read, Gil Martin's book about hypervigilance, you'll understand that you're still in that high point, even when you get home. If you work day shift and you get home at night, you need to decompress. You're right. But you need to shut off. And we had a new person, a rookie the other day, was talking to me about, oh yeah, I read my emails at home. I don't have a bunch of emails when I get back to work the next day. I said, I don't care. I'll have 75 emails, 100 emails, whatever. When I get back, I'm off, and I need to be off, and I need to shut my brain off. Yeah, I do the podcast and I talk to folks about this, but it's a different thing. I'm not wearing gear, and I'm not trying to, I'm not getting that adrenaline dump, and my mind my head's not on a swivel all the time. I get that enough.
Too many guys put their identity into what they do. How many guys, that are out there when they're off duty, if they're hitting weights or they're going to the firearms range, they're hanging out with other cops.
Right.
That was one of my big downfalls too. After my incident, my identity was too entwined with what I did. My wife was studying, getting prepared for medical school. So I was constantly just hanging out with nothing but cops. I wasn't doing my other interests. So I was devastated, man. When I was facing medical retirement and losing my spot on my team, I'm like, well, this is who I am. I had to step back and no, it's not who I am. It's what I do. I'm not Brandon Griffith, the cop. I'm Brandon Griffith. And there's much more to me than just what I do for a living. And that's where too many guys, we all know that guy who's way too into it. And if they lose this job tomorrow, they might be stuck starting their gun. And there's too many guys that are way too, that becomes their identity. And they need to have that out. They need to have family. They need to have friends. They need to have hobbies outside of what we do, and invest time into those things, into your family, into your woodworking skills, into your mountain biking, whatever the hell you may be into.
Right.
Invest that time for yourself, because mentally and physically it's going to do wonders for your body.
Right. I listened to a guy named Kent Williams, and I've talked about him before on here. And if I could get him on here, I would love to get him on, but he's very elusive. But nevertheless, he was mentioning that, Lieutenant Colonel Grossman talks about the sheepdog and the sheep, and he talks about that whole idea of what the sheepdog is. Well, Kent Williams, he went a little bit deeper, and he talked about, okay, we got the sheep, we got the sheepdog, but one more thing is the shepherd. And we got to look at, what does the sheepdog do? The sheepdog doing his job, it's running along, but what does it do? It's looking up to the shepherd. What do I got to do next? And the shepherd's pointing over whatever, and he sees that there's a sheep that's kind of veering off the path, and so it goes over and brings back into the fold, and that's what it is. But what is the sheepdog looking at? And so he mentioned what his shepherd is. He mentioned what his shepherd was, but he says everybody can have a different shepherd. Whether your shepherd is your bass boat, and you go and getting on your bass boat and getting on the lake, then that's your shepherd. But you have to go find that thing in which is going to take your mind off of here, and it's going to get you, giving you the reason to do what it is you do. You don't just work for the weekend, like that old song, but you're a bass fisherman, or you're a martial artist, or you're a competitive weightlifter, whatever you do, a woodworker, you do those things that gets your mind off of that. And I don't know how many times that, you just mowing the lawn is almost therapeutic. You just get your brain out there, and you're and no headphones, none of that stuff. Just go in there and have your brain out there doing other stuff. And that makes such a difference that will get your mind off of that. And it is such a load off, in addition to actually talking with somebody about whatever struggles you're thinking about and whatever problems you're having. And, man, maybe my chest has been hurting a lot lately, and, nothing's happened. Well, you need to go get it checked out. Yeah, I don't know if go get it checked out. If you have a relationship with somebody, you need to be able to tell them, go fix yourself. And if not, I'll take you down there.
Absolutely. Shit, you know how it is. I'm fine. I'm good. All good here. Guys, especially cops, we're notorious for that. I'm fine. We're good. Just push through, and we don't start and go, man, why am I so tired? Why am I out of breath? Why am I getting these weird palpitations? Why are my hands tingling? They're not. But you dismiss it. Oh, just because that call. It was just because of this. Oh, I need to get better sleep. Maybe I drank too much last night. Maybe it's this. Stop dismissing stuff and get yourself checked out, because the people that your squad mates, your family, your loved ones, your friends are still counting on you. And if you drop today or tomorrow, are those around you really prepared? That's what I tell a lot of guys too, is that you may be the lifesaver. You may be the one going out and taking 911 calls and saving lives, but at home, is your family prepared for when you go down? Is your wife or your kids, your roommate, your brother, whoever the hell you with, are they prepared? Did you teach them the life-saving skills you learned? Do they know how to pack wounds? Do they know how to do CPR? Do you have an AED at home? Most guys don't. And that's something that they don't take seriously, but 4 out of 5 incidents happen in the home. If your kid has an electrical malfunction like I did tomorrow, how many guys are really confident in their skill level? How many have the ability to defibrillate their own kids? And not enough people are thinking about having AEDs in their home or taking it out of their patrol cars.
Right.
They just kind of go through the motions.
They tell you should have a fire extinguisher in your house. They tell you should have a fire extinguisher in your car. I mean, I guess you never know.
That's another, I mean, with how many actual structure fires there are in the country, every place has got mandatory fire extinguishers, but why is it that when we do new home builds and apartment complexes, they don't mandate AEDs?
Right.
What are you more likely to run across? Why aren't we, with every new home build in retirement communities or condos or wherever the hell you're at, why aren't we prioritizing as a society our number one cause of death? Heart disease takes more than cancer, opiates, firearms, HIV combined. But no one seems to care about it. It's weird. Like if I told you that if a giant 737, if we had 2 or 3 of those going down a day, killing 1,000 people, no one would fly in the skies.
Right.
Why is it that when you say, oh, we're losing 1,000 Americans per day to heart disease, nobody goes, why aren't we doing something about this? Why don't we care enough?
I think it's like what we talked about before. We can't see it. You don't see the heart. You don't see that.
But I call bullshit on it because every single one of us has a family member, a friend, or knows someone that's had a heart attack, a cardiac arrest, someone that didn't make it. We all know somebody whose kids mysteriously died after collapsing, or someone died in their sleep. Those are all mostly likely cardiac incidents. So we all see it, but we choose to ignore it until something happens, until they get that scare, until they have those palpitations, and we need to start working on preparing ourselves. And like everyone knows the pink ribbons, everyone knows about opiate overdoses, but why is it that every person I come across doesn't know what cardiac arrest is? I have to sit here and give them a full medical lesson. They don't give a shit about it. And that's something that I'm very biased because it's had a very big impact on my life, because not only did I do CPR in high school, but I lost my buddy in college who was a phenomenal athlete. He dropped from my uncle had a cardiac arrest, and I responded to him constantly. So I see how prevalent it really is. And now that I work with all these survivors that were given a second chance too. So it's something that I really wish that our community would take more seriously, especially since we could have the single largest impact on survival compared to anybody else, because how uniquely we respond and how quick we are on scene, particularly municipal agencies.
Right.
We're not talking about a few lives. If law enforcement adopted these programs and implemented AEDs and updated their dispatch protocols and took their training seriously when it comes to resuscitation, we're talking about, a 65 to 70% increase in survival, which would be hundreds of thousands of Americans per year.
Right. And when I said we don't see it, I didn't mean we don't see the deaths. We don't see the people dying. We don't see a heart. You don't see a heart. You don't see what the difference is between the various branches of heart disease. What I mean is that you just don't. We see an airplane explode. Okay, yeah, that's horrible. We understand that. Don't know what causes an explosion, but we don't see the valves stopping or the electrical impulse not firing. We don't see that. And so I think as humans, that's what we're looking for. We see somebody died. Oh, they passed away. Oh, what? They had a heart issue. They had a problem. Oh man, and nobody wants to go into more detail about it. Now, if you say, oh, he got shot. Oh, really? Oh, because you can see and you can hear there's more to it. But it's such a huge thing, like you said, that we need to be the education that you're putting out there, the information that we're talking about, that needs to get out there more. And I think you're doing a fantastic job just making sure that people are aware of this whole thing. And it's really cool because you don't think about it before until it hits close to home, and it shouldn't be hitting close to home. It should be preventable.
And it sucks, man, because I don't feel like we're doing enough. I don't feel like we're getting enough. We're not pushing that needle enough. And it's one of those things that keeps me out. Could I have made a larger difference? Can I get more people to care about this? And I never wanted to do this, man. I never in a million years thought that I'd leave the streets full time and drop to reserve, man. I didn't want to get involved in public speaking or writing and stuff like that, man. I enjoy kicking indoors. I enjoy the hunt. I enjoy the camaraderie. But I have to do it because nobody else is right now. So working with my wife and my guys and my crew, we have to put in that time. And there's so many times where you're sitting there at the computer doing another mindless Zoom meeting, or sitting there writing a grant or doing reportings and all this stuff, all these different hoops we have to jump through, that I'm like, man, I wish I was on the streets right now.
Right. That would be so much. Is it easier? I don't know if it's easier, but it's way more interesting, or whatever the case may be. But in the long run, like you said, you're earning this. What caused you, at what point did you say, you know what, I'm going to leave full time and I'm going to go to reserve, or I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but I need to stop doing full-time police work?
There was a lot of different things that pushed me towards that direction. One was when my wife once she graduated her program and she had to start doing her rotations, she was, going across multiple states. I wanted more time with her, and she had to go out of state for a year and a half and get 150 heart surgeries in before she can get her national board certification. So I was like, I was driving back and forth, working the PD, and then going and seeing her on my days off, going back and forth between states. And it was a nightmare. And I wanted more time with family, because that's the most important thing in my life. So I wanted to be with my wife. We were looking to start a family at that point. But so that was a big driving factor. But once I started doing the cardiac work and we started implementing programs and getting saves, once we started working with some of the programs, like one of the agencies we work with, we quadrupled survival. And I got to award all these officers for different saves, and I'm sitting there going, man, what am I doing? I'm like, I might be able to go out there individually and save a life here and there once or twice a week, but I'm like, if I can empower entire agencies to save dozens of lives per year type thing, I'm like, I'm not doing my duty as a public servant if I'm not pushing those bounds and implementing these programs. So I'm like, I can throw the uniform on and hit the streets and do my 40 to 60 hours per week, or you know what, I can implement programs and empower other guys to do it, because nobody really is right now.
Right.
You got a lot of guys that are doing sales and here's your AEDs, move on to the next one, but no one's doing program support. No one's doing systems of care. No one's doing the entire scope to push these programs, to push the bounds in it. Nobody, we all know guys that are trying new things in SWAT, new things in firearms, new things in tactics, but there's such a need for the resuscitation side, because 1,100 fatal police shootings, 690,000 Americans dying from heart disease. Like there's something wrong here, and we need to start looking at those scales. What are we more likely to come across? And that's when I started saying, if I start doing podcasts, if I start doing articles, if I start speaking at police and cardiac conferences, maybe people will listen, maybe it'll push those bounds. But more importantly, I go to command staffs and I sit down with them. I talk about the programs they have or don't have in place, getting them on board and pointing them in the right direction, giving them policy templates and dispatch protocols and giving them suggestions and consulting for them. That's where we get those phone calls, man. Hey, I got a life save last night, man. I got to do CPR. I did this, and I got to slap that tourniquet on, and you sent me. Like, that's so fulfilling to me when you get those phone calls knowing somebody else is alive today because of the programs we put in. That's when I was like, I need to focus on this full time. And I also became a father. I was like, my kids are the most important. I didn't want a stranger or a nanny raising my kids. I wanted to be an active part in it. And being able to do reserve work and being able to work out of my home and going and doing training sessions where I can bring my kids along is something that you don't get these moments back. And if I died tomorrow from cardiac arrest, I want to make sure I have as much time with my wife and kids as possible, that I'm taking those personal times to increase my health and set the example for them.
Yeah, it's that new, it's a different take on YOLO, and you get that opportunity now where you get to say, when it's all said and done, and there's a lot of times that I've heard this saying, when it's all said and done, can you look back and say, I did everything I could have done, I wish I could go do more. Or you even think about, that reminds me of like Schindler's List, when he was going through the whole thing afterwards. He goes, man, if I'd have sold these cufflinks, I could have got more. Or if I'd have done this, I could have released more people, saved more people. And that's the idea, is that if you can go through life and say, you know what, I could have done more. And everybody's like, are you kidding me? There's no way you could have done more. And you're like, no, if I'd have done this, yeah, I woulda, coulda, shoulda. But you did everything that at the time that you had on that God put in your place at that time. And you did what you knew he wanted you to do. And, good on you for doing that. And that's, if you can go through life and you have regrets, everybody's got regrets. And if you say, oh, I don't have any regrets, well, you're lying to yourself. But the other side of it is, if you are humble enough to sit back and say, I could have done more, but I am very proud of what we have done and the people we have saved, you don't ever discount those people, because who's to say those people aren't going to go out and go provide something and make a great legacy and contribute to the betterment of the human race and do what it is God wants them to do. So that's
right. You save one life, it rings on an eternity, right?
Yep.
You never know truly the impact you make. Just like every time you strap that uniform on, man, you have no idea the impact you made in your community. You don't know if just by going to that gas station for a cup of coffee, if you just deterred an armed robbery or stop somebody from trying to hurt somebody else, man. Every single day, our officers and our first responders are making incredible differences, man. And it's something that I'm very grateful to be a part of.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So what's on the horizon for Griffith Blue Heart?
Well, Griffith Blue Heart's looking to scale and expand more, man. Now I'm doing more work outside of Arizona. I'm consulting with multiple agencies on training and for our programs. We're trying to get more of the cardiac industry involved and to help fund a lot of these programs because they're not cheap. When you're outfitting entire departments with AEDs and the upkeep for those programs and the training and stuff, we're just one nonprofit. So focusing on that, we really want to scale it. We want to maybe go towards accreditation and start doing train the trainer programs and showing these guys how to do high performance resuscitation and help them with the equipment needs they need, the scenarios, the templates. I would love to start moving in that direction. That's what I'm hoping to get to.
That'd be cool. And now I understand that you're working on a book and obviously you're writing for Police One all the time. When can we consider looking for that either on Amazon or Barnes and Noble or wherever we're going to go?
It's going to be a little bit, man. It comes back to that time management. What's best for my family right now? What's best for the nonprofit? What's best for this? So when I've got a stack of grants we're writing for agencies and policies and trainings, and we're going and putting on, I'm going up north tomorrow to put on a class, and we've got a lot of stuff that are going, and there's a lot that goes into those courses. So the book has got a lot written. It's mostly a bunch of stories and sitting down with an editor type thing, but it's putting everything in lessons learned in there. It takes a while when I get the chance to. So I'm hoping in the next year or two to be able to get it fully published and released to the public. But I've got a lot jotted down. It's a matter of putting in and editing it out.
That's cool. Maybe when you get that finished, we'll showcase. I'll get that on the show and we'll showcase it. So that'd be kind of cool.
That'd be awesome, man.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool. That's cool. It's really inspiring to see all the stuff that you're doing because you died at one time. Because I'm assuming before that happened, your mind wasn't on this at all. You hadn't even thought about this sort of thing, just like everybody else, right?
Not doing the nonprofit work as much, but it was very much in what I was doing, man. Getting those lives saved. I always wanted to make a bigger difference. I always wanted to help people. Getting my gear, training my OITs, showing them how to react to those stresses and increasing that was something that like I said, I lost a friend. I did CPR before I was even in law enforcement and EMT stuff. So I always wanted to push those boundaries, but that was definitely the straw that broke the camel's back was my own death and coming back and being like, all right, something's wrong here. We're not prepared. We're not equipped. We're not trained. We don't have the infrastructure in place for these programs. It's time to get to work.
And so if you can bullet point things that you think people could do to better themselves in this regard, what would it be?
One, taking your own health seriously. If you're not healthy, you can't impact and inspire other people. So making sure that you're taking care of yourself, your loved ones, preparing those around you. Prepare your wife, prepare your kids. You don't know when one of their classmates is going to go down. You don't know when they're going to have to use these skills. If you're going to get in a car accident, if your wife or kid is going to be the one tourniqueting you or whatever it may be, prepare those around you and start pushing to learn more about it. See what you can do to help out. See how encumbersome these programs really are. If you're in a position of command staff where you can make a difference and implement and better your programs, or if you're interested, you call Griffith Blue Heart. Our team would love to sit down with you guys and help you optimize your current program or help you implement a program if you don't have one in place.
Yeah. And what about the individual? So other than get some sleep correctly, don't drink before you're sleeping, but limit your alcohol intake, limit your caffeine intake.
Get your checkups, man. If you've never had your heart checked out, I don't care whether you're 20 years old or you're towards the end of your career, if you're getting regular physicals and you're getting checked up once every year or two, ask, hey man, I never had my heart checked out. I know you get my blood work down, but I'd like to go in and do a cardiac workup. get yourself checked out, get your families checked out. You never know. I have so many officers who have lost their children to hypertrophic cardiomyopathy and cardiac arrest because there was no signs, there was no symptoms, they just dropped. But a lot of those things are detectable and a lot of lives can be saved. They have all these programs that go into schools and do heart checks and do programs like, Parent Heart Watch and Sudden Cardiac Arrest Foundation. All these people are doing these amazing heart screenings. Take advantage of it. If they're going to be in your community, take your kids out there. Get your heart screenings, make sure that you're getting good sleep, try to eat healthy, and try to make small, healthy decisions that are going to, over time, have a bigger impact. We all know smoking's bad for us. We all know having too many cigars, going out with the boys, it's not going to end well for you over the long term. So prioritizing what you really want to do in this life, if that's what gets you joy, and having a cigar is what makes you relax, do it. But there's going to be consequences to every actions that we choose. So
Absolutely.
I used to drink way too much. I love my Irish whiskey, and I was going out with the guys all the time. So I really had to take a step back and say, this isn't what I want to do. This isn't the example I want to set for my kids. Like, caffeine intake. I'm a huge coffee drinker. Griffith Blue Heart, we have our own coffees. Like, we work with Real American Hero Coffee and have our own blends. Same thing with Filthy Pirate Coffee. We just launched one named after my wife who saved my life. I'm all about that, but I can't just drink coffee all day long either, because that'll jack my heart up and I can't sleep too.
Right. Everything in moderation, if nothing else. And that includes work, and that includes stress, and that includes killing yourself, And I love cheeseburgers, and
who doesn't?
I got to moderate a cheeseburger. I like a good steak. You got to moderate your steak. So that's awesome. It's very cool. I do want to say that if you are trying to figure out what to do, get yourself healthy, work out, find a dojo or find a dojang, or get on the mat and do some jiu-jitsu, whatever the case is, that is ridiculously therapeutic, and that would help you immensely. So if you haven't done that already, go do it, and we can help point you that direction. I guarantee it. So, I do want to say that if you want to, if you are a nurse or a teacher or a firefighter, first responder, EMT, thank you so much. We do want to thank you guys. We want to thank all of our police officers. You guys do phenomenal work. Just take care of yourself. That's all we're asking. Take care of yourself, because we need you to be there for us. And you guys, without you guys, we wouldn't have the society and the communities that we do have. And our veterans out there, thank you guys for coming in and being willing to go out on the front lines in places that you've never heard of or never been to, and keeping our country the country that it is. So thank you guys so much. And if you want to find out more about the What's a Hero podcast, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, and you can find me on LinkedIn. Get a hold of us. Ask us some questions. We can get you in touch with any of the guests as far as their websites and stuff like that. And you can get, if you say, you know what, I want to know more about Griffith Blue Heart, they'll be able to, we can point you that direction. But you can get a hold of us there. You can also find us on the What's a Hero podcast.buzzsprout.com, where it has all of our previous episodes and links to podcast platforms in which you can listen to the episodes on. So subscribe to it. You'll get notifications when it comes up, and share it with your friends. Share the podcast with your friends. Download it so you can listen to it when you're on the airplane or you're working out or something like that. And you're going to go listen to Brandon Griffith talk at some conference, because he's a fantastic public speaker, even though he says, "I know I'm not." But that's all right. So, Brandon, you got any final words for everybody?
Like you said, I want to reiterate, thank you for each and every one of you that have signed that blank check up into including our own lives. God bless each and every one of you, and earn each day you're given. Appreciate the chances in those little moments with your families, and keep doing what you're doing. God bless. Absolutely. So thank you, Brandon. For Brandon Griffith, I've been Ken Fraunfelter. This is the What's a Hero podcast, and we are clear.